So it's like space. It's like consciousness is two. It's like two halves of an equation, kinda, and more or less how we balance our mind. Kind of like an antenna system determines where we go, and so you have these like circuits in space. In time, did that one backwards, and we're pretty much in the same space, oscillating around. And so in here you have this whole place is making every layer of every other layer coming in perfect uniformity, if you will, in the physical plane we call Earth. This physical plane is a placeholder. It rolls around like these are strings, and they splay out with a difference in, diameter or placement here. And over here, they're all intertwined into one seamless reality. Literally, all the filaments come down into one seamless reality. And so then imagine it's like a bead, and this can swing around the strings, kind of tying them together or not. So, point is, this place will automatically create this for you. You have, more so. And it will balance the inner and outer and give you this kind of like, it's like a wave pool generator system where you have this land you can go around on, you can be in. Physically, as long as you don't go outside that land, you're still in that domain. And so this domain follows, if you will, a highlight that tracks around the universe. Some people are getting thrown off soon, so they're trying to convince everybody it's a suicide bandwagon, and that's the best way to go. Really. And then the other aspect is, to go out here, you would have to be able to take this form and this form with you inside yourself, meaning your brain, your heart is a power source, so you're going to go, and if you run out of heart, you're just like, oh, well, F it. You're just going to stay there forever. It's what happens. People freeze, and then the earth has to revolve around, if you will. It's not revolving, though. It's like sliding on a scale, if you will, would have to come and get you. And so, and then the brain has to be balanced. The hemispheres of the brain has to be balanced so that you can balance what's basically a trajectory here coming from a perceived invisible axis or diameter, and then your left and right has to act like a magnetic force pretty much holding you in. And so then the other aspect of that is is time, which is that it could be, say, people went on the SSPP, perpetual persistence, and they go out, beacon or a scout. This could be 2,000 years or 2 days. And this would actually be, if you're facing this way, you're on the long cycle, you got 2,000 years. If you kept it tight and you were focused, this could be 2 days. So the people who trained well have 2 days worth of memory, and it's literally like, oh, I remember everything perfectly. The people who didn't train well have 2,000 years, and it's basically the same amount of information, so it means they have zero idea by the time we get to hear who they are and what they're coming from and what they were here to do, and they basically just turn into zombies, drones. You have to fill in their consciousness and repeat it through a Wi-Fi repeater through the ship in order for them to stay there, or they literally dissolve and float away into the abyss. That was freaking people out a lot. But it's just magnetism. It's just a pulley system, which your own brain, though, is the idea behind it. So the idea is then your brain is pumping out 2,000 years worth of time in these loop cycles. And as well, you're always regulating this gyroscopic central axis within that's according to this time that you're connected to on the soul plane, if you will. Not the soul plane, but it's an anchor point within. So the anchor point has to be managed by you maintaining the continuity of your awareness that you had here on Earth, okay? The four corners on Earth as you go out here. That's why they say if people cannot control that, what's going to happen is everyone's going to leave Earth and go into something bigger. And then the people that don't know what's happening, all of a sudden people are going to disappear for them, and then it's just going to be them and bugs and stuff. And so obviously what happens, they turn into bugs and blah, blah, blah. What happened was people came back and said, oh shit, we got to do something. That's not how it works. You let them go because that's what they want to do. And then they come back up on their own. We basically have been resurrecting people from that fallen system And that was apparently the wrong thing to do because now we have monsters and demons and crazy people and people who are far under the intelligence scope to be able to have any management system. In other words, it brought back the craziness of the people who lost their mind here and basically lost their soul. Their souls are off in space, and woke them up here as zombies. And so, but the point is, you just handle your hemispheres of the brain so that you don't give into emotion, and you don't give into loss of attention, and you do that by creating that same pulsation system that's pretty much beaming you in through the earth. Something very, very deep below and very, very deep up high or powerful is holding you in like a magnetic system, making a pressure crystal, like a piezoelectric crystal generator. So out here, there is none of that. So you either have to have that on the ship, or you have to have that pretty much routed into your brain, however that's going to be done. To do it on your own is possible, but you'd have to be some guy in the woods that was just like, zzz, and you spent your entire existence pulsing out those balancing waves, and that's basically just what becomes natural to you. If any other existence than that, aka modern society, it won't work and you have to have a brain chip put in or blah, blah, blah. Or you stop now and don't become the whatever you think you're supposed to be. And ultimately, unless you're that guy meditating, or girl, whatever, but just sitting there going, pulsing out stabilization waves, that means you can jettison out into space and hold yourself in a thought bubble. Every single profession, technique, method, following every single person and industry and following, if you have a title on Earth, it means that you're dead. So Earth, if you can see it, it means you're dead because the identity that you fit into was manufactured as part of that frozen realm because it was beings who froze themselves and then came up to basically live like that. And so from our perspective, or the perspective above us from the civilization where Earth went, which means the Earth is actually the size of the solar system, they're basically those monster things that can't control themselves or are just led by illusion. Whatever illusory light, whatever faint light in the distance they see, they follow. That's the true mark of the unaware one, because it means out of all the darkness and all the lack of awareness, the first thing one sees is what they jump on and go to, and that's the reincarnation trap that sucks them right back in here. Which, again, is a safety valve so you don't fucking splay out into multiple dimensions of space and time. But ultimately, it wasn't that everybody has to be saved. It's that enough has to be saved to move on to restart the civilization, and then each one is breaking off into its own nations like we were supposed to thousands of years ago. And then the tribes come back, but they're in seclusion except for a special occurrence, which is a kind of rotary existence that goes around these kind of orbital platforms, and they're comprised of humans that passed the tests that we were given, where you can maintain continuous consciousness equilibrium over extended periods of time, which means you can do it for thousands of years, because as soon as you go out and those normal waves go like this, and you can have a wave like that of consciousness that goes up and down, and somebody else could be doing this, and they're in like 5 minutes per cycle. And if you're over there in the corner, it doesn't matter, because there's no atmospheric shield holding this shit in. You could literally be having 1,000-year cycles, and sometimes the body tends to age similarly. So it means literally you control your time space outside of this atmospheric, the conditions we have here. And it's kind of like a magnetic system. And so then the other aspect of that is you control how fast you control, which is kind of like the intensity. You control the duration, which it's like velocity and duration. I don't know, but like pitch and tempo, you can modify them and manipulate it to the point where 2,000 years flown by at the speed of light, well, it doesn't make sense. A certain speed can be, okay, so somebody goes pew and they go 9 out of 10 speed. Somebody goes 2 out of 3 speed. So all that happens, it sucks for the guy that went 9 out of 10, but, or as a same sense, it's an equilibrium thing. The guy that goes shoom and the guy goes shoom, you can merge the two, and they have a middle ground of, say, like 4,000 years or something, or 4 out of 10, if that makes sense. And so it becomes a kind of orbital collective dependent on who's in the same system operating, which is also an issue, because if you have people going as slow as they are on Earth in the nursery, which is basically it's an Earth nursery / coffin, it would destroy everything out here. And the point is, the collective's not going to go, yeah, let's slow down. They're going to go as fast as they need to go, and it will literally be like going up the stairs or through a pinball machine or something at the speed of light while everybody else is kind of waltzing through it. But everyone would be going at the same speed. It's the mind of the individual that determines how fast and how far and at what rate they're perceiving it. So it's all perception. And that means you can get stuck, and it's like it took 30 years for you, but everybody else it took 15, or like 15 minutes or something, and that would be makes person mind deteriorate. Because the mind is etheric, if you will, or not etheric. It's the perception, and so then they could lose themselves. Okay, imagine 30 years between you open a door and shut the door. By the time the door shuts, you might not be the same person. That was also what was happening, and people were mutating their DNA and all this. And so the idea is that now your brainwaves, one way or another, okay, balanced one way, you balance them and you stay on track and come back. You go balanced off, okay, you lean one way or another, you're going to widen or tighten the loop. And outside there's nothing, and outside there's nothing, but on another track there are other tracks of consciousness that are completely different patterns of where this civilization could have gone and would have came from. Meaning out here there's one that meets up over here on this earth, and say you jump onto this track and it's like that, they might be different types of entities. Different types of beings. And then imagine they set up a fake a roadblock, if you will, or a checkpoint, and they start droning people to the point where they then drop themselves down in energy so they can come infiltrate Earth and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. All right,